Can you hear me okay, Jack? Okay, great. Having a problem with my microphone apparently. Hey, Julian, how are you? Let me,
I don't see anybody.
I don't either. I see only you and Julian. I'm not sure where everyone else is.
I don't see Julian.
Yeah, I don't see him. I just see his name on the
Yeah, I
screen.
see his name up there, but I'm the
Yeah.
only one I see.
Okay. How you doing, Jack?
Oh, okay. How are you? How are you with after your 2 weeks off?
I'm struggling to get back in the
About.
I'm struggling to get back in the groove, I must admit. It's not easy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
How was
you
your
set your
vacation?
bar so high to begin with, you've got to pretty much resume at a full run.
Yeah, yeah. I did run into some interesting things. I thought of you when I was over there. The price of meat was about half what it is here. I mean, it was amazing how inexpensive stuff was. And it's because of the weak pound against the dollar. While we were there, it was in a free fall, and we were just shocked at how cheap it was compared to the last time we went, which was before COVID. So, it's interesting. We were able to see the Queen's hearse going down a kind of a small road on its way to Windsor Castle. So that was pretty exciting.
Uh-huh.
On the side of the road, we got some pictures and stuff. We had our little grandson with us, and he dresses in the black watch. He's 2 years old, and he puts on the black hat, and he's got a little red t-shirt that looks like a uniform, and he marches all around the apartment beating a drum. And that he does it every single night after dinner. He goes round and round with his marching. And then his dad took the vacuum cleaner out of his little storage area, and he goes in there and stands like he's at he stands there with a little wooden stick that he's got somewhere, and he just stands at attention, and his face, he has no emotion on his face. It's completely, like he's seen these guys. Yeah. And he just stands there at attention in the closet. So, okay. Hey, Nikki, how are you today?
I'm good, and you? And that's cute that he stands there like that.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad to be back, and sorry it's been so long, but not much I can do, I guess. So we'll go ahead and get started. And today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence for entrepreneurs. And this is one of the better segments, I think. And I hope everyone enjoys it. And I hope, folks end up coming in. They probably got out of the habit of doing this, so it may take a while to build the class back up, but let's give it a shot here.
You should send out on your next email, announce the grand prize winner for today's attendance was.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Okay. And hopefully you can see that okay. Okay, let's see here. All right. Here we go. So this is about emotional intelligence, and this is as a quality, it's not something that many of us have been exposed to that much. You talk about being smart, you talk about being, empathetic, all these various things that, humans can be. And this is an attempt to kind of put a wrapper around this whole idea of really knowing yourself and knowing what's happening with yourself at various times, particularly under stress. So, and I think as entrepreneurs, that's particularly important. So we're going to start there and see where we go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anna. I'm the managing director of Techstars LA, and I'm also an executive coach. And what we're talking about today is emotional intelligence, or EQ, and the role it plays in your success as a founder. EQ, which is sometimes referred to as emotional intelligence, emotional quotient, I'm going to use those two interchangeably, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of everyone around you. So research suggests that EQ may be twice or even 4 times as important as intelligence or IQ as hard skills in your success. In the startup community, and in particular in the tech world, we place like an inordinate value on hard skills and kind of what you know, on where you went to school, and what your role is. But the fact is the soft skills are probably harder to train and even more important in your overall success than the hard skills. But they're difficult to pin down and identify and find ways to develop. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is actually identifying what those soft skills are and then how you can build them. I actually do believe that emotional intelligence is something that you can practice. I also believe that we're never actually done practicing, so we're constantly, working on it. Let's look at some different tools. What we're going to cover in this is self-awareness, first of all, which is the cornerstone of everything. You can't work on it until you're aware of it. How to be present, how to use presence to pay attention to what's happening around you, how to recognize and manage fear, what flexible thinking is and how to use it as a tool to grow your company. Then we're going to take these skills and we're going to apply them where all the problems show up, which is other people. Because, we don't have problems. We only have problems in relation to other people. So we're going to look at feedback, how to get it, how to give it, and why this is important, and then spend a little time talking about coaching and how to coach yourself and how to coach your team around you to help them grow. I believe that personal growth drives company growth. So the more you can develop these skills and the more you can be a great coach for your team, the more effective and productive you're all going to be. So what exactly is EQ? The definition of EQ is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions, and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. In practical terms, this means being aware that emotions drive behavior and impact people both positively and negatively. And learning how to manage them, both ourselves and others, is key, especially when we're under pressure, as we often are. So we can look at EQ in 4 quadrants. And this was developed by Daniel Goleman and based on a lot of psychology research at the university level. So first we've got self-awareness, which is really where it all begins. This is the ability to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, to understand what your core values are. What do you care about? What really drives you? You'd be amazed how few people actually know what it is that motivates them. What's your why? And then what are the things that set you off? What are your triggers that get you into the emotional part of your brain so that you can't think as clearly? Being self-aware means understanding all of this. Then we move to self-management, which includes being able to stay calm and positive in a crisis and being able to recognize and detach from feelings rather than letting them drive your behavior. Good self-management allows us to focus under pressure and be adaptable, to be in a state of continuous improvement, and to set high goals and reach for them. So now that we've got ourselves kind of all under control, we move to social awareness, which starts with empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of someone else. This applies both with your team, but also with your customers. The next level of social awareness is being able to read a room. So when you walk in, you can understand the dynamics and you can see how people are relating to each other, which is going to help you communicate better. It doesn't take a huge leap to understand how this is going to help you sell more and also help you raise money. Then in the last quadrant, we have the ninja level EQ skills, the social skills, which includes everything from being able to give and accept feedback well, to being able to build and inspire trust, to use your understanding of someone else's perspective to influence them, and then the ability to be an inspiring leader, which is something that we all want. Many investors, myself included, ask questions around EQ before making an investment. So the core thing I look at when I'm looking at a CEO, is this someone that I would work for? Is this someone that I believe that I could follow as a leader? And that really goes directly to EQ. What I'm saying is this a person with high EQ who I believe has the ability to be an inspirational leader? So that's pretty deep, because you may walk into a pitch meeting and think, wow, what they care about is how good is my idea and how good's my plan and how good my slides are, when the person sitting across the table from you is really looking at, is this someone I could follow? So making an investment in EQ and really thinking about it is going to just make you, such a more impactful leader and make those meetings go so much better. I think EQ is it's like a little bit like good taste. Like everyone thinks they have it. Everyone thinks they have good taste. Like everyone thinks they have high EQ, but that can't really possibly be true, right? So in practical terms, the truth is, for good or bad, that all of this stuff is related. There is no such thing as a decision that is devoid of feeling. As a leader, you want to manage what you say and what you do. You've got to know what you're feeling, because your thoughts are driving your feelings and your actions. Your feelings are determining your thoughts and what you do. And believe it or not, your actions, what you do, actually influences your thoughts and your feelings. So the idea that you could kind of take emotion out of the equation, as some of us would like to do, and just be completely data-driven, it's just absolutely not realistic. Ignoring your feelings in all of this is just never going to work. So we have to understand how the three things work together. What we're really trying to do when we build EQ is get our two brains to work together. We have our feeling brain, which is wired unconsciously to keep us safe. And a lot of the actions we take are driven by impulses that are just really deep and that we may not even fully understand. So as a leader, you want to become fluent in EQ so you can use all these tools to build better teams, to build better companies, to have a greater impact on your customers and everyone around you. And there's a huge additional bonus from understanding and investing in EQ, which is that your friends and family and probably even your dog are going to like you better.
I want my dog to like me less, personally. She is a demanding little girl.
So let's dive right into self-awareness. How many people think that they have high self-awareness? I'm expecting everyone's hands to go up. Come on. Okay. According to Harvard Business Review, 95% of us report having high self-awareness, but actually only 10 to 15% do. So that means the majority of people don't know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and don't know, how their words and their behavior affect other people. Wow, that feels like a really big problem to me. So if you're the majority of people who think you're self-aware but actually aren't, that's a massive problem for not only you, but for your company, because especially at the beginning, you are your company. So let's look at, a really, really extreme example of someone who's not self-aware. And I just like to stop and note that, I think a lot of us have become aware that we're not self-aware recently, because there's a lot of people that have taken these unconscious bias tests online. We all think, oh, I don't have unconscious bias. I'm completely not biased against anyone. And then we take the unconscious bias test and it shows that we are. So the fact is, there's a lot happening in our brains that we don't know. But let's look at an extreme example here. So, someone who's not self-aware cannot accept feedback, don't know what they're good at, don't know what they're bad at, don't know what triggers them, so aren't able to identify when they get into an emotionally triggered state. They might actually have an inflated sense of their own performance, tend to take credit for, does anyone know anyone like this? Tend to take credit for other people's achievements and blame others when things don't work out. And finally, they may even hurt other people without realizing it. I'm sure we've all worked for someone who isn't self-aware. And it's an incredibly painful thing especially when you're in a reporting position with someone who lacks self-awareness. It's just almost unbearable. So now let's look at someone who has high self-awareness. Someone with high self-awareness understands what they're feeling and why. They know their own strengths and weaknesses. They know what drives them and what they care about and what their values are, which, by the way, also informs the company's values and helps them bring in people that share those values. Because they know who they are, they can present themselves with confidence, but also humility, and then make better decisions quickly and even in uncertain situations. So early on in life, like this might not matter so much. We've all seen people who lack self-awareness who are high achievers in school. So when you're in school, the rules are clear, the guardrails are clear. You know what you need to do to get an A in this class or that class. The teachers aren't really looking for self-awareness. They're looking for, material that you've handed in on a test. It's very transactional. When you get out into the real world, right, and in particular when we're trying to build companies, and how you affect other people, your ability to inspire people to come follow you and work for you, your ability to convince people to buy your product, all of those skills that relate to EQ become so much more important. And that's when the difference between people that have high self-awareness and those that don't really, really starts to ramp up. So we're going to go over a quick way to get started building your own self-awareness. So the first step is getting a baseline, what do you know about yourself? So this is a pretty easy exercise. You're going to write down four lists of 5 things each. When asked to describe ourselves, we normally focus on the external stuff, kind of back to the hard skills. So we talk, who are you as a person? You might think, oh, well, I went to this school and, this is my job title and this is where I grew up and these are the things I know about. We tend to talk about things that are external, but what I'm talking about is our inner self, not our external self, which is a lot harder sometimes for us to identify. So you're going to write down your strengths, improvement areas, your core values, and the things that trigger you. Once you've got your list, you don't want to necessarily post it on your social media, but you might want to share it with someone that knows you really well and get their reaction. What is on your list that they didn't expect and what is missing from your list that they think should be there? And that can be really informative. So I'd like to just spend a minute on personality assessments because sometimes when people think self-awareness, they think, oh, I should go take the Myers-Briggs or I should take the DISC or the Enneagram or the Strengths Finder. I've taken all of these, by the way. So I think they're really useful, but they're kind of just one piece. An assessment on its own doesn't create self-awareness. It's just a tool in kind of pointing out blind spots, things you don't know about yourself, or just giving you just kind of another perspective or a set of vocabulary to talk about, who you are. So to illustrate this, I will throw up some of my results and talk about how these sort of inform or relate to my own self-awareness and self-assessment. So think about these things as preferences or tendencies rather than fixed qualities. And that's really, really helpful because then it sort of gets you out of this idea of this is how I am to this is what I prefer, right? This is what I prefer. And then I can kind of correct for that. So I prefer extroversion, right? Which means maybe sometimes I actually need to build my inner introvert up. I am very high level, strategic. That's what strategic, intuitive is, so I like to stay on the top and think in frameworks, right? So sometimes I can need to spend a little more time working on the details and building up from the bottom. Judging, dominance, input, activator. I have a super strong preference for making decisions. I like to be in charge, right? That also means on the flip side, I have trouble with followership. In any event, these can be very useful. They are one piece of the puzzle, but they're kind of not the beginning and the end. So here's what it looked like when I did this full exercise on kind of strengths and growth and values and triggers. It's a little scary for me to put this up here because I'm like, wow, I'm telling you an awful lot about myself. But, self-awareness and opening that door is a little scary. It's like, what if I discover I'm not perfect, right? So guess what? You're not. None of us are. But the more you get to know yourself, there's real power here. There's real learning and growth. And, the better you're going to be in every area of your life. So we can think about all this information about yourself in kind of 4 different boxes. So the first one is your open self, the things that are known to you that are known to others. And then you have the hidden self, which is, it about you, but maybe other people don't know, right? So with a hidden self, what you want to actually try to do is make that box as small as possible. The more you reveal and share about yourself, the better your communication and your relationships are going to be, and the more you can learn. So there's a lot, it's scary to divulge things that maybe feel private to you, just about how you are and what you care about. But the more you do that, the better your connections are going to get. Okay, so let's talk about the unknown for a minute. I don't really get this. I'm like, how can there be something about me that I don't know and no one else knows? It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, like, does it really, no one hears it, does it exist? I don't know. But the one to really focus on, though, is the blind spots. So the blind spots is stuff about you that's obvious to everyone else that you don't know. Right? And this is the really scary one. So the more you can open the lid to that box and look in it and get the things that are over there into the open self and out into the open and expand that green box, the better everything is going to be for you. And the more you're going to be able to connect with people in an authentic way.
Hey, Ruth, how you doing today?
Hey, Dennis, sorry I had you on mute.
Yeah, that's what I'm used to it. Don't worry.
So now we're going to talk about presence, which is really the cornerstone of self-management. So there's physically being in the room, like we're all here, but we have various degrees of sort of actual focus and mental presence that we're bringing. So mindful presence is being aware and attuned to where you are and what's happening with your feelings and the feelings of everyone around you. So when we think about mindfulness, everyone thinks meditation. So meditation is amazing. And I highly recommend that everyone do it. But the fact is, meditation is not the only tool that you have in your toolbox to get present. Let's just do a quick exercise. It's called feet on the floor. Just notice that both of your feet are fully connecting through your shoes to the floor. If you're sitting in a chair, feel where the chair is coming into contact with your body. Just close your eyes for a minute and listen to what you hear in the background. Imagine that there's a string that's pulling straight from the top of your head all the way through to the ceiling above you. And as you do that, you'll notice that you'll sit up a little bit straighter and that you'll open up your chest a little bit so you're able to breathe a little bit more. And then just open your eyes and really look at everything that's around you. What color are the walls? Who are you sitting next to? How are you feeling right now? What's going on? Take a deep breath, and then you're back in the room. So I don't know about you, but I just did that myself, and I feel different now, and I feel like now I'm gonna talk slower, and I'd be able to make more eye contact with you, and it took 30 seconds. So if you do that before you start a meeting, especially if it's a meeting that's kind of got a lot of tension and charge, you're just gonna have a much better meeting. There's also a great way to do this with a group. It's called red, yellow, green. And it's a really great way to start a team meeting. You just go around the room and everyone checks in whether they're feeling red, yellow, or green. So green means I'm in the flow. I'm calm, I'm rested, there's nothing bothering me. I'm fully ready to be present and be creative. It's great if everyone's in green. It's usually not the case. Yellow means there might be some anxiety fluttering around the edges. Something's a little off, not quite right. Either I'm distracted about something that's happening at home or I'm bothered by something at work. And so, I might not be 100% here, but I'm 75% here. And then there's red. So if someone checks in red, it means there is something that is really upsetting me and I am in a full emotional high alert state right now, right? It might be a really big problem at home. It might be something at work. And by the way, you don't have to say, if you're in the red, you don't have to tell people why you're in the red. It might be something that you don't feel comfortable sharing, which is completely fine. But it is really important that your team knows that you're red. Because if you're red, you got to go deal with that. You can't do whatever this meeting is right now. It's just not going to go well. So if you do red, yellow, green, and one of your teammates checks in red, ask them what they need right now. Ask them if they need to leave, ask them if they need to have a conversation about it. So take care of your people first. If you have someone in red, or if you're the one in red, deal with that, and whatever it was that you were going to discuss in the meeting can wait. So there's a bunch of benefits you're going to get if you're fully present. The first one is really simple, just awareness. You're going to notice more of what's happening in the room, including people's body language, and you're going to be able to hear more of what's being said. So you're just going to pick up more of what's going on. That goes along with higher level listening. So you're going to be able to Deeply listen and have empathy for the people around you if you're present, which you cannot do if you're distracted or you're checking your phone or you're kind of in and out of the room, right? And it means you're going to get the content. We have so much trouble with communication. It's amazing how often you'll leave a meeting and one person heard one thing and the other person heard something else. And if you're fully present, you reduce the chances of that happening. The third thing is your creative brain is going to be fired up. So you're going to be able to actually like engage with whatever is the problem or the thing you're discussing. And by the way, if there's no problem or meaty topic of discussion, and it's just a meeting to report on stuff, you shouldn't be having the meeting. A good meeting is a meeting where there's some creative problem solving that needs to happen. Finally, you're going to have a positive impact on the people around you. Do you know those people that when you meet them and they shake your hand, they make eye contact and they make you feel like you are the most important person in the world and you have that jolt of energy that comes into you, those incredibly special people? If you practice presence, you will become one of those people and you will have that impact on everyone around you. And there is just no greater gift than being that person for someone else. One of the biggest mistakes we make in life is living in the future, so worrying about things that haven't happened yet. So in the startup world, we worry about like, you know, whether customers are going to like our product or like if we're going to run out of money in 6 months or what if our competitor gets there first or, you know, some other thing that we have no control of and isn't actually on the table today. The other thing we like to do is live in the past. So, you know, having regret that we didn't make a different move yesterday or resentment against someone else who didn't do something that they were supposed to do for us that has now created a problem, you know, none of which is on the table today. So the team you have in the room with you today, the product you have today, the angel investor who just committed to being the first person to write you a check to get your product out the door, those are the things that are on the table today. And being present, you know, will help you engage with today's problems using the best faculties you have today. Being present so you can bring your whole self into the room to lead is just going to be key to handling whatever comes your way. Let's talk about fear, because fear is a reality. When you're an entrepreneur, fear is everywhere. I don't believe a great company can be built on fear, but I do believe that a great company, in fact, most great companies, maybe every great company, is built by people that felt fear and worked through it. So what do we feel fear about? So Harvard Business Review actually did a study where they identified 7 specific and repeated buckets of fear that are felt by entrepreneurs. Okay, so the basic one is financial insecurity. It's really risky doing a startup, right? You're not building your 401k. The second one is running out of money, right? The most common fear of entrepreneurs, we're not gonna outlast our cash on hand. You know, we're not gonna be able to make it. We've got 7 weeks, we're running towards a wall. The third one is imposter syndrome. It's the idea that I've tricked people into giving me money. They think I'm someone that I'm not, and I actually can't do it. And I'm gonna get found out. The next one is that the idea is no good. I've convinced people that this really great idea, you know, is gonna change the world, and I'm not sure I 100% believe it right now. And then there's the shame or embarrassment factor. You know, what is it gonna be like when I have to, you know, tell everyone the company blew up and that I failed? You know, I can't even stomach that feeling of imagining what that's gonna be like. Then there's the team. You know, I didn't hire the right people. They're not going to be able to do it. I don't have the right people around me to execute. And finally, the opportunity cost, that big corporate job that you didn't take where you would have been building your 401k, and I'm never going to get it back. And I got myself off the path, and see, now I'm spinning. Like, I am getting upset just talking about this stuff because I have been there, and, you know, I was that founder, and I mean, I had all of this. You know, it's real and it's no fun. But here's the thing: fear is not all bad. Right? I don't want to say that all fear is bad. Fear can be a great driver, right? If you're saying, I got to work hard, I need to figure out my sales channels before I run out of money, or you're going, I got to hit my goal this week because that's what I said I was going to do, like that can be really, really motivating. It can drive progress and learning. But here's the thing. It's incredibly damaging when fear becomes physical. When you experience fear as a physical sensation, it stops you from being able to be effective. You're tense. You know, your heart rate goes up, like your breathing increases, like your blood vessels constrict, right? Your mental focus, you know, becomes insanely sharp. So this is the classic fight or flight response, and that is driven by your amygdala. Your brain is going, what do I need to do to stay safe? So how do you think that is going to affect your ability to make good decisions? So the fact is, you cannot build a great team or a company or even have a good day when you're feeling like that. So when you become aware that you're in that feeling, you're having those physical fear sensations, just stop, just slow everything down. Don't make any decisions. You got to address that, back to sort of the idea of being in the red, right? If you've got that level of fear, you're in the red. Go back to your presence tools, go for a walk, get outside, do something physical. You can talk to your team. I personally find that when I say how I'm feeling, it like cuts it in half at least, if not more, right? It's a little bit like, it's not that the fear isn't real. The fear is real and it's rational, but it also reminds me a little bit of like the monster under the bed, and like when mom and dad comes in and like looks under the bed and the monster's not there, like the kid feels better, right? So it's a little bit like that. When you share it, it kind of, fear hates the light of day, so if you're feeling that way, you share it with someone else, it's gonna help you lessen it. If there's no one that you feel like you can really talk to about it, which sometimes happens to CEOs because you don't want to say to your team that you feel afraid because you feel like you need to build confidence. You can always also, by the way, I would encourage you to say it to them anyway, because you're going to be, they're not going to be freaked out. Your team's going to be glad that you shared with them. So if you are a CEO and you are worried about showing your fear and vulnerabilities to your team, like think about it. If you decide to do it, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. But you can also write it down. Sometimes just writing things down sucks the power out of them. And, coach yourself. Just ask yourself a simple question. What's the one thing that matters right now? And that can sort of help you get back on track. The point is not to stop feeling fear or to imagine that you're ever going to get to a point that you're not going to feel it, because you will not. By starting a company or deciding you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've put yourself in a place where you're going to feel more fear probably than even the average person. The point is to recognize when it shifts from working for you to working against you, and then to manage it. So I love to say, like, feel the fear and do it anyway. The most powerful leaders are those who acknowledge and embrace their fear and then turn it into an asset.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. Sorry. There we go. So there's a lot to unpack there, and we're going to continue the second half tomorrow. But the thing that really strikes me about this is this management of fear. I don't know about you, but in some cases, depending on what it is, I don't necessarily recognize that I'm fearful. I might be exhibiting it to people who know me, will say, man, you're coming across in a certain way, yet I don't feel that way at all. And I'm not aware. And part of that is developing that ability to really understand what's going on with you, and I think many of you can relate to that. I don't know if that's something that you experience, but when you really change your habits, like in the case of if you've had a long corporate career, or you've worked in a big organization, and now you're starting your business and you're doing all this stuff that maybe you haven't done before, or not a lot of experience in it. You may have some of these gates or some of these blockages and not even be really aware of it. So one of the advantages, I think, of this group that you could do is you could reach out to others and talk about those kinds of things. Maybe they would also relate to how you're feeling. But more importantly, I think that with this series of videos, and I encourage I look at them all the time and I share them with people all the time. It's really one of the best of all of this content. But if you think back what she was saying, do you feel fear? Just stop, slow down. Don't make any big decisions. Give yourself a chance to process this fear. And I think that society may, reward the brave, or whatever the right cliche is, but It isn't always necessarily healthy, because just because you push through doesn't mean that you've dealt with it or that you've resolved it. And that's a really important concept, because it will come back to bite you later, in my experience anyway. So it's okay to work things out. It's okay to have a really clear picture of where you are emotionally, not mentally, not intellectually, but emotionally, is a really important thing. And I want to just tell a quick story that will illustrate this point a little bit. So one of my authors that I like is a guy named Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T, and he's interesting. I'm really quite liberal, but he's a very conservative writer. He was a professor at UVA when I was in that area. I think he's at NYU, but he tells the story of the elephant and the rider. And this is supposedly a true story, who knows? But in this village in India, this elephant kept coming through the village and just absolutely tearing the village apart. He would just rampage and knock down the little huts, and he's just really a problem. So the council got together and said, what are we going to do about this elephant? So they said, well, why don't we get somebody to ride the elephant, and that way that person can kind of control what the elephant does. So they thought, okay, when they knew this guy who was really good with elephants and had a great reputation as an animal trainer. So they hired him to be the rider for the elephant. And so this guy would go into the jungle and find the elephant and climb up on him and ride him around. And everyone was really optimistic, about, oh yeah, this is going to preserve our village. So then all of a sudden, the elephant goes crashing through the village again and absolutely tears it apart. Only this time, this guy's riding it. He's the guy's on top of the elephant, and the elephant's doing the exact same thing that it did before. And so when it was all over, the village leaders sat down with this guy and said, "Come on, man, you're the rider. What the hell's going on here?" And the guy looked at him and said, "Here's what I've learned about riding elephants. First one is, the elephant does whatever the hell it wants. And the second thing is, my job is to tell you what it just did." So I compare the elephant to emotions and the rider to the intellect. The emotional side of it, the mental side of it, is far more powerful and strong and impactful than any intellectual process. You cannot marshal the kinds of resources that a true emotional storm, if you will, can bring to the table. So it's really important to understand that there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on that you may not even be aware of. It may not be something that you in your day-to-day really are aware of. So think of that little rider up on that elephant. And, the job of your intellect is to explain, why you did the things you did, like starting a company. You have to have a lot of passion and emotion to do that. So this whole subject, this whole idea of emotional intelligence and having awareness, it really is an under taught or under aware kind of thing that really all of us can benefit from doing this kind of thing. She also started off in the beginning talking about the difference between hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills are, can you program a computer? All of the various things that we all know of as skills. But the other side of that is awareness of your emotional state. Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling confident? What is going on? And lots of times we cover that up with various behaviors and actions. We don't want people to know how we're really feeling, for example. So this whole thing is a really critical piece. And soft skills, in terms of universities, I'm starting to see universities, I believe it's Elon, or it's one of the North Carolina universities, I could be wrong on that, but their tagline is something like, teaching soft skills for a better life, or something like that. I couldn't believe it when I saw a billboard. So they're actively trying to make this important to their undergraduates. It's not subject specific. It's not a hard skill. it's a soft skill. So those are really, this is an emerging science, I guess. It's really common in market research at big corporations. They do a lot of this kind of stuff, a lot of studying. You may be familiar with something called an FMR, which is, believe it or not, a helmet that you put on your head, and it's got wires on it. And then they ask you questions and show you pictures, and it's supposed to measure your emotional response. So there's just a lot going on in this space. I encourage all of you to, anything you can do to get up with this. But this particular woman and her approach and this series of videos is among the best I've seen anywhere. So because it is very practical and oriented toward taking action by entrepreneurs. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or reactions that anyone has. Okay, don't all come up at once now. Come on. I'm sorry. Apparently my video is not working. I'm not quite sure why, but
The man,
His
this
life,
is
I
Nikki.
guess.
The man you referenced, you said his last name was H-A-I-D-T. Jonathan Hay?
H-A-I-D-T, Jonathan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I can't remember the title of the book. It might be Elephant and Rider. I don't know. I read it a long time ago, but I think of it often. So,
Okay.
all right. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I did want to chat with Ruth just real briefly, and you all can benefit from this conversation as well. But Ruth, when I was in the UK for a couple of weeks, for whatever reason, I had very high awareness of all of the different jams that my wife's daughter had in her refrigerator, and I was really struck by a category I literally had never heard of before, and it's called conserve. So there was strawberry conserve, CONSERVE. It was unbelievably good. It tasted exactly like strawberries. I mean, it was just the most intense strawberry flavor, but I don't know what it is. It didn't say preserves, it said conserve. So I just thought of you when I tasted that and saw that basically everyone I know over there had some jar of conserve something in their refrigerator.
That is so cool. Thank you. Usually a conserve has a dried fruit or nut in it. I used to make conserve. I used to do a peach conserve, but from what you're saying, it was just the fruit?
Yeah, it was just the way it was promoted on the shelves, because I started looking when I went in the stores, was the intensity of the flavor compared to regular jam. That was the message that the marketers were trying to share. So, it also promoted the fact that it was less sugar.
Yep.
So I'll try to find one of the brands and send you a link to it. But it's on the shelves, it's jam, preserves, and conserve. Those are the three types that are on the shelves, at least at the stores I went into, which were mostly, big grocery stores. But
Yeah.
I was just struck by something I had never noticed before, or even heard the word before. So I thought of you. And of course, over there, what's really different is I don't think there's a single person in the entire UK that does not have toast and jam for breakfast. I know. I mean, it's just what they do. I mean, they don't eat eggs. They just eat, toast and jam. I mean, it's just,
Wow.
it's a food basic. So it may just be that, my daughter-in-law, and not my daughter-in-law, my stepdaughter, I should say, and all of them, I don't know, but I followed suit and I started really liking that conserve.
Well, I so appreciate that. And thanks for the heads up. But and I have carried home countless jars of jam from traveling wherever, because what struck me in the difference in the jams in other places versus here, and what influences a lot of what I do is just what you said. It's the intensity of the flavor.
Yes.
And I've been trying to figure out what they do. Is it the less sugar? Is it a way that they're doing the fruit? Yeah, I don't know. But that's
I don't know
I'm
either.
intrigued with that, because I love some of that European jam for sure.
Yeah, what was interesting to me was, like if you go into a US grocery store or online or whatever, and let's just say it's a low sugar jam in this case,
Yeah.
that becomes kind of the marketing message, like
Mhm.
this is low sugar. All
Yeah.
right. And it's somehow big letters or whatever picture. They don't do that there. It is not part of the marketing there. It's more by category. So at least I learned that if I pick a conserve, it's going to be lower sugar than the others that are there. And it doesn't really say that. It's not a huge call out on the product itself. It's just the category has less sugar. And in talking to my in-laws and stuff, they everybody has a conserve in their refrigerator, even if it's not their first choice, if they like the higher sugar, whatever. But I just, this is the third time I've been since 2018. And maybe it's because of working with you, Ruth, I developed more awareness for jam, but I had
Oh,
never
thank you.
noticed concert before. So all I could think about it, I actually thought of sending you some, and I thought, well, that's stupid. That's a waste of money. I can just tell her about it.
Well, that's sweet of you to say.
I'm like, Liz, my wife is going, you can't send her jam. What are you doing, you idiot? So anyway,
That's why I've checked bags, Dennis. And that's also why I came up with TSA friendly 2-ounce jars, because I have
Yeah.
checked so many bags for jam. It's crazy.
Yeah,
But
you're
the jam here, there's kind of the verbiage of whether it's jam, jelly, or a spread is kind of, I don't know that the FDA definitely enforces it, but it's at least a loose guideline. And that jam and jelly have a certain ratio of sugar. And so it's like 1 part of fruit to 2 parts of sugar. If you use less than that, in the US, it's called a spread.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, you can't call it a jam if it doesn't have that sugar. Now, I think what people are doing is when they're using the fake, what I call fake sugar, whether it's stevia or what else, I think because they were able to prove equivalency, that they're saying that it's jam. I'm
I
not
see.
sure.
I
I'm not
see.
sure about that
Yeah.
at all. But
Interesting.
yeah. Now, the other thing though, is a lot of times if it's a spread, they have to have a preservative, because if you go with the ratio of the jam and the sugar acts as a preservative.
Okay.
But with less sugar, you have to have, and you want it shelf stable. That's why some people do freezer jams. You have to have a preservative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I it's really funny. The more you're saying this, I'm not quite sure. Just even trying to remember if I even saw the word spread or jam or any of that. You know what I mean? I just don't remember now that you say that. So I have to go back and look at. I couldn't bring any home. I didn't bring any home, I should say.
Yeah, no worries. But I do think that is, I'd be interested to know, and I'll Google it and see what I find as well.
Yeah.
If they're, how they define conserve, but it's interesting that they are pitching the flavor rather than the sugar, less sugar.
Yeah. I was really impressed with that. And I think it's a function of your audience, right? I think, every single person is eating good toast and jam in the morning. So it's not quite the same, it's like every single person already kind of knows what they want or what they're doing. So it's a little bit of a different, awareness or whatever the right word, a different target audience is probably the best way to put it.
Well, and the flavor profiles are a little different, because if you get orange marmalade that's made in the UK, it tends to be a little bitter because they use more of the peel in it than if you get orange marmalade, say, in the States. And certainly the way I make orange marmalade, it's not as bitter because I don't like bitter. But there was while I was doing a business trip in the UK some years ago, they were having this orange marmalade competition. And so, one of these papers I picked up had details about it. And what they were doing was they were actually kind of ranking the winners according to like how much peel it had and the size of peel, and like,
Yeah.
wow, it was just so different than the way we would look at it. So I'm fascinated with cultural differences in jams.
Well, yeah, and I think, you know, and this is just a gut reaction and I haven't really thought it through. But it's an interesting segmentation exercise also, like, and I'm just making this up. I haven't thought it through, like I said, but what if you were to come out with a line of UK jams or whatever the right name would be,
Mhm.
but it would be going after people who understand that, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
expats or just people who really like the taste over there. You know what I'm saying? I think it might
I do.
be a fairly sizable market. It would be my guess.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I mean, cultural marketing or cultural target marketing really is not, that's not a common thing, you know, other than
Mhm.
like super extreme, like this is all Indian food or this is all Chinese or, you know, that kind of thing where they tend to be all in on every aspect, right? It's not just
Mhm.
jam, it's everything. And, you
Right.
know, so the idea of a target, a market target, and it could even be promotional, like a certain time of year, you know, like
Yep.
figgy pudding and jam promotion for Christmas or
Yeah.
something. You know, I think there's a lot of, there's some traction there. I think that would get the attention, it certainly get the attention of me.
Yeah.
You know, as someone who goes there all the time. So anyway, just kind of a thing, you know, I'm becoming a jam guy. Oh, what can I say?
Well, you're well trained, and I appreciate it. That's what I could say.
I am. I'm well trained. All right.
Well,
Well,
it's cool. Well, thank you
for-
so much. I appreciate it.
yeah, no problem at
Glad
all.
you had fun.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. They live very close to the route where the Queen's hearse went after
Wow.
the ceremony at Westminster. So we were only like, I don't know, 100 feet, something like that, from where the hearse went by us, and you had our grandson, and it was just really, and it's like one of those moments, a historical moment that you'll always remember, and that was really something.
I'm sure it was, and it's also one of those things you would never think about even planning for,
Oh,
which
I
makes
know.
it even more amazing, you know.
Yeah, we just lucked out that they happen to live on. So without boring everyone to death, but the way it works over there, it's a very different than the US, in my opinion. So what they did with the Queen's hearse, when the ceremony was done at Westminster, the cathedral there, they had to go quite a ways actually to get to where they were going to bury her, which is at Windsor Castle, which is actually, oh, I don't know how far it is from London, but it's a ways. But what they did was they took back roads and they went slow, right? So they didn't like speed by on the interstate going 100 miles an hour. They went 30 miles an hour on these kind of local roads, and they published all that and let people know. So there was a crowd all along the path, and but she was going slow, and you could see it easily. Everyone could see it. It wasn't just a blur of somebody driving by at 100 miles an hour. So I really like that.
That's very cool.
Very different approach and very integrated with the people, because she really was, you know, a queen for the people, and she was there for so long. So most of these people have never not had the queen, right? I mean, they just
Mhm.
always been there. So I just think it was very, I'll talk about emotional intelligence. Whoever planned all this had a high degree of emotional intelligence to connect with the, you know, with the Queen's subjects, and they did a phenomenal job, I think.
Mhm.
In our little area where we were, there had to be 1,000 people, you know, along that route, and that's a lot of people.
It sure is. Yeah. Well, that's very cool.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll take this up again tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.